The Chicago Bulls have 7 players on expiring contracts this season. And on today's episode, I want to take a look at those 7 players and make a determination on if they're going to be brought back, traded, or just let go in the offseason. I want to take a look at that. Plus, we're going to take a look at how Billy Donovan is trying to keep the locker room together while he's also calling it the effort of the team. And we're starting to get players getting back healthy. We're going to look at all these things and why the franchise has to make a decision sooner rather than later. We're going to talk about who stays, who goes, who's worth the money, and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content today, y'all. And I want to take a look at, first starting off with these players that we have that are on expiring contracts, right? I want to take a look at that, what they're getting paid right now, kind of trying to do some predicting on what their future could be here for the Chicago Bulls. And, we'll talk about each one of these players, but I also want to hear from you guys, more importantly, down below on how you feel about these guys. And no, just saying, let everybody go is not an actual response. I want some thought out responses in this, why you want to let players go, where you think they can go, and think about trades. If you say trade, think about what it means for both sides, the team that we're trading them to and the Chicago Bulls. Think about both teams' needs in a case like that. I want to see none of this, let's trade Vooch and P. Will and get Zion shit. If you really think that's going to happen, this exercise just ain't for you. It's too much thinking involved. Don't worry about it, right? But, all right, let's start off with this, right? Nikola Vucevic, I think that's the number one player that we have to look at. He has the highest salary of any of the expiring contracts. $21 million is what he's getting paid this season. And we know going into the offseason, we heard that the Bulls are going to be looking for a suitor for Nikola Vucevic, right? To piggyback off what K.C. Johnson said last year at the trade deadline is that the Bulls had did some groundwork on an offseason move for Nikola Vucevic. That did not materialize at all. Vuce then went on to have one of the worst preseasons that I've ever seen him play, and then came out initially in the season playing pretty well to start off the season throughout the first 6 or 7 games, and then fell completely off a cliff by far. Like, Nikola, this is probably, and I know people are going to be like, well, Nikola Vucevic never defended, and those things are true, right? Like, the defense is the defense. We knew that with Nikola Vucevic. But it's more than that now. Even his offense has taken way steps down. We talked about earlier in the offseason, earlier at the start of the season, even when Vooch was putting up decent numbers, is that almost 90% of Nikola Vucevic's buckets were assisted, right? And I use that to talk about the fact that, for people saying, well, we can't trade Vooch for just a defensive center, which I used to be one of those people, right? Because you look at Vooch, what he did passing-wise and all those type of things, that's fallen completely off a cliff. That's just not who Nikola Vucevic is anymore. So much of his buckets are now assisted that it's like he's gotten it up some 85% of his buckets are assisted. When you compare that to how he's been over his career, keep in mind, Vooch is a player that, while, yes, he's always, like, most centers have high number of being assisted, right? That comes with the center position, right? But it's different when it comes to Nikola Vucevic, is that so much of what he does is assisted that it's like, all right, we're not really gaining anything. Like, if most of your buckets are going to come off assists from your guards, that actually leads into the people that are like, hey, we need a defensive-minded center here, because at least that center is going to catch lobs and those type of things, which is going to put them in a situation where being a little bit more active, right? So Vooch has taken several steps back as a player, averaging only, 16 points per game is what he's averaging right now. And Vooch is just not an effective player anymore, really, for the Chicago Bulls. And so while the percentages aren't bad, he's shooting 47% from the field, he's shooting 38% from 3 on the season, which aren't bad numbers in of themselves. It's the efficiency, it's the effectiveness. All these type of things are hurting Nikola Vucevic right now. When Vooch is on the court, the Bulls are negative 86 with a net rating of negative 6.6, a defensive rating of 118, and an offensive rating of 112. The defensive rating stays the same when he's off the court. The offensive rating goes up by almost 4 points, and we're a net rating of negative 2.5 rather than the negative 6.6. Vooch just is not an impactful player for this Bulls team at all, really, anymore. And when you factor in one of his biggest and best assets as well was his rebounding, we know we're getting killed on the boards there, right? So it's things like, unfortunately, when it comes to it, there are a lot of teams looking for centers. But I think that they're going to find those centers in the Daniel Gaffords, maybe even the Anthony Davises, like even trying to play him at center more so. Like we've heard that the Pacers could be interested in trading for Walker Kessler, right? At the end of the day, there's no real value in Nikola Vucevic anymore. So I don't think the Bulls are going to be able to move him because I think you're going to have to give up something of value to get him moved. And I think when it comes down to it, we're probably looking at Nikola Vucevic just expiring. And I hate to say that. I wish that we could now get him, a different place or send him somewhere else. But even if you do, you're not really getting anything back meaningfully for it. That just is what it is. That's the place that Vooch is. And Vooch is a perfect example of why you have to strike while the iron is hot. And unfortunately, it's just not there. Maybe Vooch's slump is just because of the frustration of the team. Maybe a team looks at it and say we have a much better situation, much better defense around Nikola Vucevic. But I just don't think right now he's gonna find a suitor unless coming out of this break and for the rest of the month of December and most of January, Nikola Vucevic plays well. And I just don't have a lot of faith in that. Vooch, I think, is just going to have to end up expiring. I don't think we're going to be able to move Vooch without giving up something meaningful. I think he stays here. Next up is Zach Collins, right? Zach Collins, he's only been back for 2 games so far from his wrist injury that he suffered. He's on an $18 million contract right now, right? Now, I want to be clear. He played really well after we acquired him last year. The 2 games so far, it's not like he played bad, but I'm not going to hold that. His first 2 games back from injury, right? I do think that Collins fits. And I think if we're moving on from Nikola Vucevic, which we should do, and letting him walk in free agency, I see this Bulls team wanting to retain Zach Collins. Even if they do trade for another center, even if they do draft another center, I could see them wanting to keep Zach Collins. He's a solid vet with solid basketball IQ. He gives effort on both sides of the ball. Not really known as a defender. He's not known as a great offensive player either, but he does enough and has some physicality, which the Bulls are lacking. And I think that this one, I think that we're going to get Zach Collins back. I think we're going to re-sign Zach Collins. I think it's going to be a shorter, hopefully more team-friendly deal. I don't think he's going to get the $18 million he's getting paid now, but I do think he's probably going to get above mid-level exception money, probably somewhere between 10 and 12 million for Zach Collins. If you can get him there, we'll see, but it is his choice. I think he could choose to go elsewhere, especially with the teams that need center depth, but I think the Bulls are going to try to retain Zach Collins. I say that he comes back. The money, it depends on how strongly he finishes the season, but I think Zach Collins comes back. Next up, Kevin Huerter. Kevin Huerter at $17.9 million contract right now for the Chicago Bulls. There's been a lot of talk I've seen recently saying that Kevin Huerter has played terrible. He has. Now, he shot the ball horribly from 3, right? And I've said this before coming into it. He was coming, when he got traded to the Bulls, he was having 2 of his worst three-point shooting career seasons of his career. Then he got his three-point shooting stroke back when he first got traded here to Chicago, but it fell back off a cliff. And he's not shooting the 3 ball well, 30% from 3, but he's doing just about everything else well. 3 rebounds a game, 2.4 assists. He's still averaging 12 points per game, shooting the ball still 47% from the field. His defense is some of the best that we've seen from him in his career. He seems really engaged on the defensive side of the ball as well. Now it comes down to how do they view it, right? Now, I'm using on-off numbers. When Kevin Huerter is on the court, the Bulls are negative 7.5 with an offensive rating of 113 and a defensive rating of 120. When he's off the court, we're negative 72, right? So it's still better when he's on the court than off the court. We have an offensive rating of 113 when he's off and a defensive rating of 116.9. Kevin Huerter is in that spot where it really comes down to, I think, what they do at other spots on the roster. You can upgrade from Kevin Huerter, and I think you may need a more actual two-way player, right? A more actual defender. But I do think he's been better as an off-ball cutter. He's getting better at finishing around the rim, which we've seen him do really well. And that's even without, at one point he was leading the Chicago Bulls team in blocks before Modest really started taking his blocks up. His defense is taking huge steps, though, this season as well. He has 14 blocks on the season. He's only behind Modest Buzelis with that number, which is sad when you look at Kevin Huerter. Kevin Huerter is a guard/forward. But I do think how he comes back from this injury, and if he gets back to more how he looked at the beginning of the season, I could see them re-signing him. I do think that he's a player that teams could come calling for in a trade as well if he does play well. So I think the Bulls are either going to re-sign him or they're going to trade him. I don't think you're going to let him walk for anything in free agency, maybe a sign and trade in free agency. But if Kevin Huerter comes back and plays well with how he's shown that he can fill in as a role player, I can see some teams that need some scoring, that need some solid passing, and need a good vet that could come calling for him. But Kevin Huerter feels like the type of player that AK and Eversley will keep around. I wouldn't be mad with them letting him walk, depending on what they did with that added space. And I'm definitely not mad if they include him in a trade with his contract to get a different player. I think it can go either way for him. Coby White, right? Now, the Coby White thing, I had an episode a couple of days ago. All the people blaming Coby White for the Bulls slump are just wrong, right? I went into the raw data and analytics, which are objective, and the Bulls are a better basketball team when Coby White's on the basketball court. That's held true for the most of his career. It holds true by the numbers this year. All that other talk is just talk. When Coby White is on the basketball court, the Bulls are a better team. Better by all. They have almost 10-point difference positively when he's on the court on the offensive rating than when he's not. And the defensive rating only drops from 117.9 to 118.3 when he's on the court. So that's not even a drop. So the increase that we see, both of that, the team shoots a better true shooting percentage. The assist percentage goes up by 7%. The turnover percentage goes down by 3%. The Bulls are a better team when Coby White's on the court. Coby White's the longest tenured Bull. I don't think the Bulls are going to let Coby White go. Now, I will say this. I do think, and I think more than ever, if you find a player, and that like I said for Trey Murphy, if the Bulls want Trey Murphy and the Pelicans like, yeah, we need Coby if we're going to do that, and we only want, maybe the Portland pick, or we'll take a future first if we get Coby. If they do, and I think they'll prioritize the picks. I wouldn't necessarily hate it, but I will say this. I think Coby White's coming back. I think that he's going to be back on the court for the Chicago Bulls. I think they're going to re-sign him. He's stepping up as a leader in the locker room. AK is value that guy. It really comes down to, do they view Josh Giddey and Coby White as a backcourt that can play together, right? So I think with him asking for $30 million, which again, I think that $30 million ask is going to have to come down with his injuries and things that have happened this season. So I think that is going to come. I think Coby White is going to be back here. Now, I do think they could include him in a trade if it's for a big trade, right? A major shift. But overall, I think Coby White's going to come back. Next up, Ayo Dosunmu. Ayo Dosunmu, who's on a $7.5 million contract, an absolute value, right? And when you look at it, he signed his contract extension at the same time Coby White did, and they were both coming off rough seasons. He's going to come. He's not going to leave anything on the table, right? And so at this point now, right, the max that they can offer him before free agency is 140% of the final year of his salary, right? So that would mean that they can offer him right now as an extension is $10.5 million. That's why he's going to go into unrestricted free agency. But as I keep pointing out, there's the exclusive negotiating window after free agency opens that you can negotiate with your own free agents. The Bulls are going to really have to, I feel, re-sign him in that window, because if he goes to the open market, I definitely think that there are going to be some teams that are calling for him that could push that value up. So I think that he's going to come back to this team, and I think that he is going to come back and he is going to be a Chicago Bull. He's one of Billy Donovan's favorite used players. He's AK's second draft pick after P. Will. I think Ayo Dosunmu is going to come back, and I think he's going to come back on a contract anywhere between $15 to $18 million-ish dollars. If the Bulls start winning again, he looks good like he did at the start of the season, I can easily see that getting towards $20 million, but I think Ayo Dosunmu is going to return. Jevon Carter, he's on a $6.8 million contract, which he provides some veteran leadership. I get it. They say he's a good locker room guy, all those type of things. I do think that the Bulls do value what he brings to the locker room, but I just don't think they bring Jevon Carter back. He hasn't really been. He's seldomly used. To get paid $6.8 million to barely be used, unless he's willing to take a very team-friendly contract to stay with his hometown team, I just don't see Jevon Carter being back in the Chicago Bulls uniform. Unless, they make some other changes to the roster and they bring him back as a back end of the bench guy, maybe there. But I think they may go a younger route with that. And that brings us to the last player on this list, Dalen Terry. Dalen Terry right now on the last year of his rookie contract at $5.3 million. And they could make him a restricted free agent by extending him a qualifying offer, right? And that's going to be what they do there. Considering he's 23 years old, I do think they try to keep him around for cheap. I think that he's going to be the back end of the bench guy. I think that's how they're going to use Dalen, is that, hey, we're bringing him back. He's been here. He's been in our system. We'll see how he can develop. He's going to probably be on an even cheaper deal. I don't see there's going to be a lot of suitors for a player like Dalen Terry unless a team that's bad wants to take a shot at him. I think Dalen Terry comes back, and I think he comes back on a really, really cheap deal, kind of like a prove-it deal. And he may not play at all, but I do think they're going to bring Dalen Terry back. And again, one of their draft picks, AK, doesn't really like to let go of his guys. I think Dalen Terry comes back here, but on an end of the bench role. So with that, what I have with that, I have Javon Carter going. I have Kevin Huerter probably leaving with a chance to come back, and then Nikola Vucevic leaving. Right, so that's three of those players that I think are going to be gone, creating 3 open roster spots. More could be created in other places as well, but I think that's probably going to be what we see. And the Bulls very well could see what they get for value of these guys out there as well. But I want to hear from you guys. Who do you think is going to return? Who do you think stays? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. But the Bulls are getting back healthy. Trey Jones, Jalen Smith, and Isaac Okoro all practiced non-contact yesterday. That was per Billy Donovan. That's good to see. Casey Johnson also pointed out that Ayo Dosunmu didn't practice only because he went to see a doctor with a sprained thumb, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be something that keeps him out. The only player that we don't hear anything about yet is Kevin Huerter. Now, that could be because they announced he was going to be out a week. By the time we take the court again, that will be that week, so maybe he's going to be back out there anyway. We'll see what happens there, but the Bulls are getting closer and closer to looking like they're going to be back at full strength, so that would at least eliminate the injury question around the Chicago Bulls. You want to get all your guys back out there so you can continue to evaluate. The Bulls look like they're getting closer and closer to getting all those guys back. And, I mean, when you look at it, Trey Jones, Jalen Smith, Isaac Okoro, those are all they're just not back into the bench players. Those are players that all played major roles for this Bulls team when we were playing well. I mean, we were all calling for Jalen Smith to play more. And we heard that, Billy Donovan is open to playing the double bigs once Zach Collins comes back. So maybe we can see a little bit of that. Isaac Okoro was that starting small forward for us. He'll probably come back to that role, and then we'll see what Trey Jones brings as that guard off the bench that can create, push the pace, things like that. So getting all those guys back, great to see that they're getting healthy. Shout out to those guys. Hopefully they can help the Bulls start riding the ship, and we'll see, right? But with that said, it leads us into our last topic for today. I want to talk a little bit about Billy Donovan, right? And Billy Donovan's recent comments in regards to this team. He was interviewed by The Athletic where he said this: I think the group gets along very well. They all like each other, but until they love each other enough to block out, dive on the floor, and do that not for themselves, but for the guy next to them, this will continue. I don't care about the injuries. It's part of the NBA. What can we control? The disconnect is when they care enough about each other in that locker room, that's when they'll get there. We'll see. He goes on to continue to say this: in the adversity we're going through, the losing, whatever it is, I think your true colors come out, who you are, and your competitive character. If that's the way we go, that would really, really speak deeply to the individual and collective character of the group. I don't worry about that. I want to focus on that point, right? When he says who you are and your competitive character. I don't always agree with Billy Donovan, but I couldn't agree more. What we're seeing with this team is their competitive character. I've talked a lot about the people who said, well, after Billy Donovan said they weren't good enough, which isn't the quote. This is why I hate when people aggregate things and a lot of people don't go and read stuff for themselves. He said we aren't good enough defensively not to give effort. But if the players took that and they got in their feelings about that, they aren't players that are ever going to really amount to anything. You know what? Like let's I don't even want to go to the Bulls that won a title. Do you know if Tom Thibodeau said that team wasn't good enough to compete defensively, do you know what the locker room would have done? Do you know what a player like Joakim Noah and his leadership would have done? Do you know what Todd Gibson, how he would have took that? Do you know how even Kirk Heinrich and Ronnie Brewer and those guys would have taken that? They would have taken that and said, oh, we're not good enough defensively. We about to go out here and hold a team to 75 points. So if the players on this team heard Billy Donovan say that, and what a lot of you guys are saying in the comment section of, oh my God, well, they wouldn't care if he said they aren't good enough, which is not exactly what he said, then they're bitches. And they are never going to be able to take the rigors of fighting and competing in what this is. You have to be able to compete. You have to have that fire internally inside you. That's not up to a coach to put that in you. Now, a coach can cultivate that, but you have to have a little bit of that drive inside you already, right? And that's the thing that you have to be here. We talk about the stats all day, right? What it is when it comes down to it. But as a Bulls team that came into the season with Ayo Dosunmu saying, I believe we can make the playoffs, you are very close to being right along with the bottom feeders of the NBA. You're 28th in net rating. Your defense is the second worst in the NBA. Your offense has dropped to not even middle of the pack, but to be ass, right? All these things have happened. a lot of this, and like I said, when you watch this team actually play basketball games, it's not like they're just being outworked because teams have more talent than them. They're being outworked because of effort, desire, and the fire to compete. And like Josh Giddey said, the word is out on them. Teams know if you just rebound well and refuse to go away, you're gonna catch back up to this Bulls team. And that is the competitive character of this team. That is the competitive character of this roster that AK and Eversley have put together. That is what it has gotten us. So yeah, it's up to I'm putting a lot on the players. That's not to abstain coaching. Billy Donovan, if you've lost the locker room, you got to go, my boy. But right now, talking about the fire on the court, players have to get that unless they've collectively gotten together to decide, oh, we about to completely tank this so that Billy Donovan can get the fuck up out of here. Which, again, if that's the case, that's the case. But if that, until that's what's said or that's what happens here, you guys are all playing like a bunch of pansies. And at some point, you have to have some type of pride about what you're doing on the court. You have no identity. You have no culture. And that is a lot on the players. Of course, AK, Eversley, the ownership all has a place in that as well. But right now, the players, where are you at? So we'll see how they come out of this extended break and if they come with a little bit more of that edge that we saw from them. And part of the reason why I know it's there. We saw it at the finish of last season. We saw it at the beginning of this season. We've seen this team have some competitive edge and fire. Where has it gone? So whether it's whatever's going on in the locker room that needs to be corrected, whether it's reconnecting as players with each other, whatever needs to happen there, you got to find your path. You got to find your way because there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You got to get this shit together if you want to salvage this season. And a lot is riding on the line. A lot of players' contracts, futures, and all that is riding on the line based on how they play this season. So let's see what they do. But that's it, man. This next moment is going to define what the next era of the Chicago Bulls could look like for a while, right? Whether the front office sees it or not, this is where we are right now, and this is what's being happened. Like I said many times before, I appreciate you guys for riding with us. Keep supporting the channel through the highs and lows of the Chicago Bulls. But one thing, this season has been crazy, but Chicago Bulls Central has not let you down. Make sure you guys drop your thoughts in the comments as well. I want to see who you guys think should stay and who should go. Make sure you're following us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. BullsCentralPod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.